going on, guys? Welcome back to another Game Time Discussions. I'm Emery Cuzzy. I'm sitting with Cameron Selby, and we're going to go over the Thursday Night Football slate between the Cincinnati Bengals and the Baltimore Ravens. Cincinnati at Baltimore. The over-under is 53. Baltimore is favored by 6, which is honestly super surprising to me. I don't know how you feel about that, but that's crazy to me. So
yeah, it is the highest total on the entire weekend of games. Really fun game. This last time these two teams played, it was a 41-38 game where Evan McPherson missed a field goal, and then they were going to run it out into overtime. Derrick Henry had a big end-around run. Then they get a chip shot field goal to steal the game from Cincinnati. So these two teams have always had entertaining games since the Joe Burrow and Lamar Jackson era started between the two teams. Really hard to see how we're going to dissect and fade comfortably one of these top 6 up here, because it's really interesting. And then if T. Higgins ends up playing, that would throw a whole nother wrench in things as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Those 6 that Cam is mentioning are the Lamar Jackson, Derrick Henry, Chase, Burrow, Zay, and Chase Brown. Right underneath that, though, is T. Higgins. Let me put the flex numbers on here so you can see it. Yeah. So T. Higgins at 8,800. So right in that same price range. It's going to be a fun. It's a fun slate, and it's very difficult, which always makes them better. I think difficult slates, good pricing, hard pricing always makes it more interesting and fun. So yeah, let's dive into it. Starting with the Baltimore side of the game, because I believe they're the away team. No, sorry. Cincinnati side of the game. They're the home team, away team. We're going to talk about some pass catchers. That guy right there. Chase Brown, we'll talk about as a running back, but he is a pass catcher in this offense. That guy, where's Andre? And do you want Drew Sample in here?
Sure.
I
mean,
Tanner Hudson. How about all them guys?
Down there. There's not really a go-to guy down low that is truly pulling value.
Right.
I think it's just one of those like 0.7 projected 200 minimum price guy that is the highest value right now, which is kind of honestly what you want to see on slates like these, because you don't have as chalky of a build.
Right. Yeah, for sure.
It is worth noting Zach Moss is at least out for the next 4 games, but they're pessimistic about him returning in the regular season. So for the fantasy purposes, he's done for the year. They did make a trade for Khalil Herbert today, which I did mention at the beginning of, or in the middle of best ball season, was hoping that Khalil Herbert could find his way onto a Dallas or a Cincinnati to become a 1B, get value in his 17th through 18th round. But the fact that he was traded today, it's a Thursday night game. I have very little, or I have doubt that he'll make much of an impact at all. His price for what it is worth has been added to this slate. I think you said he was 2,800.
Yeah, right here.
But again, last week it was the Chase Brown show, so he basically got all but 7 snaps, but he had 32 touches in a game they were playing from ahead. Just killed it. He was in the $1 million line and all that good stuff, and is starting to have his breakout performances and stuff. Already 6 touchdowns on the year. Has had some pass catching work, but just him being the only guy on this slate is just he is in the pool for sure.
Yep, and in the first game against Baltimore, he did go for 12 for 46, and then 3 catches and for 8 for a touchdown, which should be noted that was while Zach Moss was playing.
Right.
And then let's talk about these pass catchers. Eric All goes on IR after he tears his ACL, so that opens up some cheap tight ends. They actually have 3 tight ends, not including Eric All, that you could play in this game. That includes Tanner Hudson, Mike Gesicki, and Drew Sample.
Yeah, Drew Sample led the team last week with 76% of the snaps. That was I don't know if that's an outlier or he just took everything away from Eric All, but he also only had 1 target. Or I'm sorry, no. He had caught all 4 of his targets for 14 yards. He also scored.
Right.
I was looking at his other box scores because if you look at the previous 4 weeks, he had nothing on nothing. So just kind of a volatile guy that, you're looking for cheap guys. You have to play somebody, and hopefully just getting a couple catches will get the job done. But Tanner Hudson also had a season high with 20 snaps. And then Mike Gesicki had his we were hoping when we drafted a couple shares of him in best ball that he would have some, occasional 15-point games. And he's like, how about a 30 burger?
Yeah, absolutely.
5 for 102 scores this past week. Incredible game. And, all of a sudden now he is the by default 3rd option on the team, and even 2nd when Not
T
Joe
T
Mixon. T
Higgins out.
Higgins is
Yeah.
out.
Well, and don't forget about Yoshi Voss. He's here. When he is in, he did have 4 targets in the last 2 weeks, 4 targets and 3 targets, but he has just not been catching the ball
And he's on the
except
field all the time.
constantly,
And
90%.
Yeah, 90% last week once again. And that was with the healthy scratch of Jermaine Burton. Charlie Jones also didn't play. Obviously, T. Higgins has missed the last 2, and yet he's still only catching 1 ball, but for the touchdown.
Yes.
So, he's in the pool. He's probably one of my least confident ones, and you don't really say that for somebody that's playing 90% of the snaps is only 3,400.
Yeah, I was gonna say for 3,400, I'm like, I feel like I got to get some of him. Jamar Chase is the guy. We're gonna talk about it. Baltimore last time they played 10 out of 12 and 193 for 2 touchdowns, 44 points in that game. Just broke this every slate. We had him. It's awesome. We're gonna get some of him today. He's just an awesome football player, and he's going to make all of our predictions from the offseason correct. Is what's going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting because the last 2 weeks he's had a couple duds.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's not because of target share or anything, but just not having the big play or big chunk plays. Only 6 yards of reception. He caught a touchdown against Philly, and then in a 5-touchdown game this past week against the Raiders, he did not catch one.
Right.
And it made us very sad because we had a chunk of him in our lines. But hopefully he rights the ship. And Baltimore, they did trade for Tre'Davious White from the Rams.
Mm-hmm.
One, I don't think that is as impactful as people will make it seem, but also I don't expect him to have much of a role on Thursday night, being just 2 days away. So yeah, he is one of the top options on the entire slate.
One thing I want to make a big case on is he's really good on primetime games. Going back to last year, he's had 1 dud. That dud did come against Baltimore, but before that, he played the Rams. He had 12 for 141, and in the other game, so against the Ravens, he was 2 for 12 for a touchdown, and then I got it right here. I'm sorry. Monday night against Jacksonville in December last year, 11 for 149 and a touchdown. This year, he's played 1 primetime game. That game, he went for over 100 yards. It was Washington, 6 for 118 and 2 touchdowns. So I like him on primetime games in general. That makes me always feel better when I know a guy, shows up for spotlight games like that. So that's another reason I want to play him as much as possible.
And for what it's worth, I believe that that Baltimore loss was the game that Joe Burrow went down.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So, yeah, it was because he went down at halftime on a touchdown throw. So, basically, a lot of that was with Jake Browning. The touchdown he did catch was from Jake Browning.
Gotcha.
So, his 1 dud was when his quarterback went down, and his quarterback has been absolutely balling. The only guy with a 5-touchdown pass game. He's done it twice, and he is number 2 in the entire league in QBR. Number 1 is Lamar Jackson. So, these 2 guys are having career years, and it should just be as advertised as they've just been playing this year.
Yep. The other game that he had 5 touchdowns in, I did want to also state, was the Baltimore game where he went 30 of 39. Great QBR, great everything, rate and everything. For 392 freaking yards, dude. 5 touchdowns, 1 interception, just so good. Let's see if we can run it back.
Yeah, one thing I did want to mention though, before we did move on to Baltimore, is that T. Higgins isn't ruled out yet. He missed the walkthrough on Monday. I don't think that there's been an update so far for today's practice, but I wouldn't be concerned at all about a snap share or anything because he came off a 2-game absence, had a hammy, and then his first game back had 90% of target or snap share. He led the team in targets, I believe, in week 3.
Yes.
And then had 2.
Well.
It was probably short. But the next 2 weeks had a 10-target game. And then Baltimore, he was just as good as Jamar Chase, having a 2-touchdown game, 14 targets in that same game. So if he does play, I feel like a lot of people are going to be off him. And if he's an under 25% owned guy on a shootout slate like this, that's something that I want a part of, and I want to be overweight to the field.
So asking, do you want to talk about him in or out in this game? Because I would actually expect him.
I would expect him to miss, but I'm just saying
okay.
If there
so
is,
we're in the same case. Okay.
Yes, but if he ends up playing, because we saw a couple weeks ago where Puka Nacua wasn't expected to play, he ended up playing and he played very well.
Right.
And that was off hey, he's going to be limited. I don't expect him to be limited if he does play, to where he wouldn't get his 7 to 10 targets.
Yeah,
I mean,
completely fair.
So other than Jamar Chase getting his typical 10 to 15 targets every game, everybody else is pretty spread out. Mm-hmm. So he's going to clearly slide back into being his 1B self if he does play. But I just want to mention it because that's why you got to join the Discord and just be on the lookout for when we're talking, because we release this, or we record this Tuesdays, we release it Wednesdays, and then on Thursday, that's when we get the inactive list. And so if
Right,
he's
for sure.
active, we're going to be talking about him for sure when we play our 2 to 3 lines that we typically do.
Yep. And then looking at the Baltimore side, another guy that might be inactive is Isaiah Likely. Hamstring, did not practice on Tuesday.
Yeah,
so this is a
bad sign.
Bad sign, exactly. Real situation. Hamstrings are terrible, man. They are so tough to come back from. If he's not playing, there are some other options. Zay Flowers had a career game this last game against the Denver Broncos. Last 2 weeks, he's been just awesome. 32
Basically every
points.
week that we didn't bet his prop, he's gone over 100 yards. 5 of the last 6, I believe, he's hit 100, and then he got rolled up on, or 4 of the last 5.
Yeah.
But the one that he didn't was a game where Lamar Jackson went off. He got hurt on an end around play, and he was a decoy the rest of the game. But yeah, he's been incredible, especially for your fantasy team. But I mean, he's definitely in the pool. You saw his 7 for 111 against Cincinnati when he did play back in week 5. So he's like they're all up top. You gotta get 3, maybe even 4 of these guys for it to work.
Talking about some of these other guys, Deontay Johnson getting there. I believe he will play. I'm wondering if he'll be limited.
So he played last week 17 snaps, didn't have a single target.
Yeah.
But at the same time, they were leading by a good chunk the majority of the game. It was just good and kind of reps. I would expect more of a workload in this game because, I mean, there's not really much competition for snaps. I mean, they're riding with Tylan Wallace and Nelson Aguilar. Rashad Bateman's actually played really well, but he also is coming off his career low in terms of snap share.
Mm-hmm.
And then, but he's typically getting his 4 or 5 targets.
Right.
Mark Andrews, his price isn't rising, but he's kind of back to what we had him as, maybe a less in his prime version of it, but he had 3 straight games with the touchdown, actually had 4 total in that stretch. And then last week, again, had a dud, but they didn't need him. And that was basically the same for everybody that wasn't Derrick Henry or Zay Flowers.
Fair enough. So that's kind of the rundown. Nelson Aguilar is the other guy on here, but truly you could kind of dart through.
I wanted to point out Charlie Kohler,
yes,
who would be the backup tight end for Isaiah Likely. If there is going to be a chalky, cheap guy, he's at 600. But he has done I believe he's scored a vulture touchdown already this year. Basically, in that game, he had 3 for 64 and a score. If you're looking for upside down there, somebody as a tight end 2, they've used their tight end 2s all year.
That was against Cincinnati.
Yeah,
so
exactly. So,
there you go.
He's probably going to be the most popular in that range, but he makes things work and fit in that regard.
Absolutely. And then talking about the running backs, because you got to talk about them too on this team, because one of them has just been so good and annoyed us all year, is Derrick Henry. And then Justice Hill is the pass catching back for them. Derrick Henry has scored a touchdown in every game except for one, Washington, this year, I believe. It's only one, right?
Yeah, that was only one, I believe.
KC? Oh, no, he did. Okay. So,
he 13 touchdowns. He's already over 1,000 yards. We were dead wrong on him.
Yeah.
And just point blank, that was probably our worst call of the best ball season. It hasn't really affected us as much as I thought it would at this point. But, he's a 100-plus yard bonus threat, touchdown threat every week. He's going to be like a minus 300 to score. But if you want to say for what it's worth, Cincinnati was the one game that he was held in check.
Mm-hmm.
He had his touchdown, but until he had that 40-plus yard run at the very, very end, he was under value, basically being one of the highest priced running backs on that slate. And he really didn't, perform for you because I believe he was at that point, close to 8,000. So 16.6 wasn't going to get it done there. We kind of agreed with our fade on this slate, and I don't feel great about it, but you got to pick somebody, right?
And that's Derrick Henry. Cam is referring to, we both are fading Derrick Henry, I believe, which is scary because you can get 30 points obviously out of him. But I'm actually going to talk about this next guy, Justice Hill, because in good game environments for Justice Hill, he's been very, very productive. That includes Kansas City, where they were down. That includes Buffalo early in the game, I believe.
Yeah, that was a weird game where they were ahead and he still performed. But then he had a dud in a back and forth game in the 79-point total between Cincinnati. It is worth mentioning that Keaton Mitchell is supposed to make his debut on Thursday.
Right.
I think he will play less than 6 snaps, and
It's an ACL, man.
maybe take 2 or 3 away from him, but he's just a guy that's, in the tournament range. He's right around all the defenses and kickers, and probably will be the less owned of the bunch. But he has upside when he's a pass catcher and in pass catching situations. So if that's the game environment that you're kind of predicting will be a thing this year, he's going to have 8 to 10 touches, and if all those are receiving in, that'll kind of work out for him based on price.
Yep, absolutely. So let's talk about some game theory, and what we expect to happen. I will let you go first on game script.
Yeah, so I said Cincinnati takes it 30-27. I'm calling for the upset. Like I said, these are the top 2 overall performing quarterbacks in football right now. I expect a shootout just like we had last time, but this is almost a must-win for Cincinnati because they are 2 down. Being 3 down plus being swept by Baltimore would not be great for them trying to turn things around. So they kind of need this, and I just don't see them letting it slip away if they have it close at the end.
Fair. Similarly, I actually think this is a must-win for Cincinnati. I do have them winning. I have it 31-24. Kind of feels like a must-win. Like I said, Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase make it go, though. They are what make this train go. It's not going to be. I love Chase Brown, but it's not Chase Brown week as much as it is going to be Jamar Chase week. And the Ravens are last in allowed passing yards at 280. They are first against the run, though, at 75. So I'm going to pick the passing game over the running game because of that. For the reason this happens, figured out that you have to figure out what to do with these top guys that we talked about price-wise. Let me grab the Cincinnati guys. Those 6, 7 possibly are going to be very hard to navigate, but when you figure out who you like, that's going to be very important. -6 to Baltimore just feels way too rich.
Yeah, it does. I mean, it's a division game. They always play each other close. Yeah, 6 points is a little too much for me. We'll have to see if it makes one of my final 5 favorite spread picks of the week. But I am picking Cincinnati outright. Not entirely confident in it, but we're just going to go with the narrative of division game split.
Yeah, for
between the two. I want to hear what your biggest must play on the slate is. I think you kind of alluded to it earlier, but I think the 2 that we both picked are kind of where we're going to start all of our lines.
Yeah, Jamar Chase is my favorite play on the slate. He, like I said, the primetime situation where he's been very good in primetime. He's been pretty solid against Baltimore in general through his whole career. And Baltimore being last against passing, Joe Burrow being so good this year, Jamar Chase is my preferred captain, preferred player overall, I think.
Yeah, and I think it's fun because I think he actually may pull in less ownership than a Derrick Henry.
That's crazy.
So if that happens, we're just going to be a little different. So I love that call. I'm going to stay up top for mine and say Lamar Jackson's my best one. He's even better than what his MVP year was last year. I believe he's hit his passing prop in 5 straight games. He has the rushing upside every week. He hasn't been below 22 fantasy points, and then he had that 37 burger against Cincinnati, that week. And he hasn't really been doing the rushing touchdown thing. It's just been straight up through the air.
Yes,
he's
crazy.
I believe he's tied for or leading the league in passing touchdowns.
He's got 20 touchdowns and 2 interceptions. I mean, he's just been good. He's just good at football, man.
He's actually number 2 behind Baker Mayfield, but he and Joe Burrow are tied for second at 20 touchdowns apiece. So I think if there's a way you can get all 3 both quarterbacks in and Jamar Chase, that's kind of my preference.
Yes,
it's just going to be
agreed.
really, really hard once you get down low, what you want to do with that.
For sure. I want to hear, because we talked about our fade being Derrick Henry, which is super scary, but it is what it is. So you have to fade somebody, and he is just the preferred choice at this point. Contrarian/tournament plays, who do you got?
Oh, mine's going to be an uncomfortable Drew Sample.
Yep.
$2,600, but again, I alluded to with Eric All going down middle of the game. He led the team in snap share for tight end, and he had 4 targets, 4 receptions, and he scored. So I'm looking for 7-8 points.
Right.
Getting that's going to be incredible value in return. You need to go a couple cheap guys on lines like these, and so he was just one that I think stood out to me.
Gotcha. Mine is going to be Justice Hill, because I do believe that Cincinnati will be up in this game if Justice Hill ends up being the guy that finally, because his snap counts are kind of the issue, right? So if he's on the field, he's got during the season he's gotten 50%, 53%. So if he's on the field for that much, 54% in that week 1 game against Kansas City, you're going to be really happy because he's going to be catching the ball as much as he can. He's not going to be running it. He's a good pass blocker, but he will, if he's the guy catching the ball at 5,200, say he scores a touchdown, you're going to really want him in your line.
Right.
And then let's do a first look. Do you want me to go first?
Yes, I want you to go first.
Okay, let me pull it. Sorry. I had it all. No, I can probably do it by memory. Let's try. So my captain, and I have this question for you after I finish up because we're going to put both of our must plays in, of course. Okay. If I play Jamar Chase, I want Joe Burrow, obviously, as the guy that I get to. Let me see. What did I have? 9. I know I have a $4,000. $4,200 Mark Andrews because he is now the tight end 1, possibly the second option in this offense at times, most likely number 3 though. I did go down to $1,600 Tanner Hudson, so he made it into my line, and that leaves me with $6,000 for. I went with Rashad Bateman here. So that was my first look. Now I can always switch these two, Lamar Jackson and Jamar Chase, in this line, and then go up to Travion Williams, who is the backup running back for Cincinnati. He did not have any run, but don't forget, guys, he is now the true backup. And if they want to put someone else in, Khalil Herbert coming in after a week, I think they'll probably side with Travion Williams.
Right.
So,
all right, not a bad first look. I think I'm really interested to see how the captain ownership is going to be because there's not a price captain that's just like easy chalk captain.
Yeah, for sure.
So I think everybody's going to be 8 to 12% at captain, which will be really fun because slates like this are wide open. If you're uncomfortable because we're uncomfortable, then that means everybody else is uncomfortable.
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
how these things go. So yeah, not a bad first look whatsoever.
All right, let's hear yours.
Oh, I don't want to. I'm just kidding. So I'm going to start with Jamar Chase at captain as well. This is a very strange line, but we're gonna just talk it through.
Okay.
Both quarterbacks.
Okay.
And then I'm gonna go all the way down to Charlie Kohler.
600. Okay.
And then we are going to live in the mid range with these last two and go with a Mark Andrews and Mike Gesicki stack. So a 3 tight end build.
Okay.
Little 600 remainder. Have the high upside at captain and both quarterbacks. I think it's a interesting way to go in tournaments because nobody really likes playing a 3 tight end build.
Yeah,
I don't
fair.
myself. So
it's interesting. No, I don't hate it. If you can get Charlie Kohler's to get value, I think everybody else just naturally makes value.
And for what it's worth, with this exact line, you are able to afford a Deontay Johnson.
Right.
So if you think that he can do a DeAndre Hopkins kind of impact where his second game is truly the one that he does break out, it is a more positive game environment. That's probably what more people will do to zero themselves out. But I would actually prefer Mark Andrews outright if price didn't matter over him.
Agreed.
And on top of that, if you could have afforded a kicker, which you probably could if you went to a Joe Burrow, a captain or something of that nature, I might enjoy that as well because I expect higher scoring. I actually had both teams, scoring field goals a ton in mind. Yours was a little more touchdown enabled, but yeah, that was just kind of how my mind went with my first look.
So I have a question because we did also both fade Derrick Henry, Zay Flowers, and Chase Brown in both of our lines. Would you like to try to get Zay Flowers and Chase Brown into a line?
Yes.
All right, let's do it then. Let's go. Well, my thing is, if I want to play Zay Flowers, I probably want him at captain for his price. Like he's cheaper. You can naturally get. I think you can probably get Chase, Burrow, and Jackson if you have Zay Flowers in there. But you don't have to get Burrow. Is the cool thing in this line.
My question is there a cheap captain that you think could be viable to get 4 of these guys up top?
That's tough. There's really not a guy between here. Let's put on flex. Between like 4,000 and 6,000 that I want to do that with. I guess my favorite guy, cheap guy, is 6,600 Mike Gesicki because he is wide receiver 2 if T Higgins is out.
Yeah, I mean, if you click on his game log, I mean, again, he had his 5 for 100, but then the week before, I believe he had 7 for 73.
Yeah,
And
solid.
then going down to weeks 2 and 3, when T Higgins was down and out, or at least in the second game, he had 7 for 91, and that was the same game that both Eric All and Tanner Hudson each also had 4 receptions.
Right.
So he's a preferred pass catcher, but it is a good game environment. So. And obviously, he's really the only mid-tier play on this slate because everybody is either priced up or down.
So I think he's my favorite my favorite guy to get all 4. Who is the 4 that you want then? Do you want Lamar, Chase, and then Burrow, Flowers? Can't do it.
Burrow, Flowers. I mean, yeah, it would be nice to get the number 1 for both teams in, but again, you can't do it with this build. Now, if we're getting frisky, just because he is really cheap. Also, Isaiah Likely being out is worth noting as well.
All right.
Mark Andrews at captain,
allowing
might be able to make you afford some stuff like that you want to.
Yeah, I mean, it's 100 short.
Love it.
It's 100 short of Tanner Hudson, which is where I would have wanted to go there. But you can always go down to Kohler. I mean, I don't hate this if you can figure out who your favorite last guy in is. Kohler's here.
Yeah, if it's Kohler, you can afford anybody but Derrick Henry. But if you wanted Tanner Hudson going down to Chase Brown and then up to Tanner Hudson, but then you don't really have a stackable piece other than Mark Andrews for Lamar.
Yeah. I think personally I would just go down to Kohler and play it that way. Patrick Richard scored last week, which is funny.
Yeah.
Put Kohler in there, $600, leave $900 on the board. It's a good way to get different but you're not that different because no matter who, if someone puts Mark Andrews at captain, you're getting 4 of the guys no matter what.
Yeah.
And then going from there. So I don't hate it. It's a very interesting week because of pricing, and I love that. It makes it fun. But getting 4 of the top 6 guys is going to be very hard and very interesting. I think
another way to get it as well is if you're in the boat that one of these 2 field goal kickers who are some of the best in football are able to have a 3 field goal game.
Mm-hmm.
Neither have really performed like that this year. Justin Tucker essentially can't make 50-yarders anymore. And then McPherson has had some 3 field goal games, but he has only, I think, kicked 4 field goals in the last 5.
Right.
Overall. But both of them capable of doing so. But I mean, yeah, you look at Evan McPherson, only 2 field goals last game, but then 1-0-1, and not attempting a ton either. So if you think either kicker can get to 15, that's a way to get to that, and then also have the upside if you didn't want to go the Mark Andrews route.
Absolutely. But I think we should get over to our prop of the day. I want to hear. Let's go ahead and move over to Prize Picks. There we go. I know that you were talking about a couple props, so we'll talk through both of them. I think is good because it has changed. So I don't know which one your favorite is at the moment, but let's see what you got to say.
I'm gonna just kind of stick with my gut right now, and it's going the wrong way, but maybe that's value that you're returning anyways. But Lamar Jackson, 232. It's kind of like a "what are we doing" thing. He is not just hit, but he is cleared by at least 48 yards in the last 5 games.
Right.
And again, against Cincinnati was where he had his season best of 348. Cincinnati, the way you beat them is through the air. And Lamar's been just kind of balling out this year. And so 232, I looked at the weather and I was like, maybe that's the reason. It's a fair 70-degree night. I don't really get the total, and especially because it came out at 235. And then you were like, it's going to get bet down to 230 because that's where all the books are at. I'm going to just stay up top for now. Zay Flowers was a close second. His is actually going up a yard. But yeah, those are 2 of mine that kind of stuck out for me. And then also with T. Higgins being questionable right now, there's really not a ton for Cincinnati. But I do know that one that you picked is pretty fun.
Yeah, so my choice on this slate was to go with, where are the touchdowns? There we go. Jamar Chase over half a touchdown. He's been okay at doing this, but what I do know is that when he plays Baltimore, he scored 2 this last time on primetime games. He scores a ton. So I'm just confident that Jamar Chase is going to get in the end zone. He has the most touchdowns by a receiver this year at 7. That's 7 out of 9 games.
Mhm.
So I'm pretty confident that he gets another one this week, and he's my favorite pick of the week.
Yeah, like you said, he's leading the league in receiving touchdowns. I thought it was pretty interesting when I did see the 2 touchdowns that Chase Brown was a goblin.
Yeah.
It's now been bet down to where it's even money now, but I was like, if I had to pick one or the other, I think I would go Chase. Lo and behold, especially if it's better value. So, yeah, that's a pretty solid line. And then also his receiving yards, it's only at 79.5, but to be fair,
I think
he
it
has
went
not
up.
hit. Has it gone up to 81? Okay,
Yeah.
well, to be fair, he has not hit that in his last 4 games.
Right.
But he has hit the touchdowns a couple times. So, but at the same time, the last time he played Baltimore, he had 190 plus yards. So
he's good at football when
yeah,
he wants to be
he's
good.
a guy that's in our player pool, and we're going to be disappointed if he doesn't score a touchdown if he's our captain. So we might as well just fit that problem.
Absolutely. So let me stop sharing this. There we go. We appreciate y'all hanging out with us. That was our Thursday Night Football slate breakdown. It's going to be interesting. Make sure you get in the Discord for this slate for sure, because if T. Higgins plays, that changes everything. If we get some report that Khalil Herbert is going to be active in this game, that'll change things because he's only 2,800. Make sure you're in the Discord for those reasons. We've got a lot to talk about in there for props, weekly fantasy updates and things like that. If you have questions, we're in there. And then on Sunday mornings, we also do that. So
right, yeah, and I mean, to be honest, it was a pretty rough week, especially on my end this past week. So I'm ready to kind of get back in it.
right,
This is a slate that isn't the best from a value perspective, but again, everybody's thinking that. So there's ways to get different. We already showed lines with multiple $100 remaining and stuff that won't be heavily duped. So
right, yeah,
basically the key is seeing how you're going to dissect the top 6 up top and then top 7 if T. Higgins is playing. And there's ways to do it. It may not be comfortable, but there's going to be guys in this slate that are going to score that you wouldn't expect, and those are the ones that are going to help you win $1 million.
yeah. Pick one of 5 tight ends.
Yeah.
there's tight end galore. It should be National Tight End Day for this game alone, because there are 3 tight ends on one side, 4 if one of them didn't get injured, and then on the other side there's 3 and one of them is also injured. So we'll talk about all that. That's another thing that we will talk about in Discord, is if for some reason Isaiah Likely gets in this game because his hamstring is good enough, we'll have to talk about maybe not playing as much Mark Andrews, things like that. So make sure you get in our Discord, hang out with us. We're going to be sending all of our lines and bets and everything, so it'll be there. Comment, and subscribe on this video also, please.
Yeah, check out, we're doing a main breakdown as well, so
Yes.
that's going to be released this week. And then also we have our updated power rankings that we've released this week as well. It's also getting closer to bowl season, and we're getting painting a bigger picture, a clearer picture of the college football season. So it's a lot of fun, having a lot of fun doing it, getting smack dab into November. So it's really fun, great times to be a football fan for sure.
Absolutely. Cam has not seen our predictions yet because our video for college football recaps came out today, and we're actually recording as it released 30 minutes ago. So I am excited to see what he has to say about our SEC predictions and things like that. But hopefully y'all go and check that video out also. And if not, we will see y'all next time on one of these videos. So thank y'all.